Men and women differ morphologically, physiologically, cognitively, psychologically, and behaviorally, and many of these differences are getting larger. We propose a synthesis of ideas to explain this divergence of the sexes. First, we note that, rather than fading away, as societies become more healthy, wealthy, and gender equal, many sex differences in human psychology and behavior are being magnified, the gender equality paradox. The affected traits are broad and include personality and occupational preferences. For example, the female share of STEM degrees is typically lower in countries designated as having more gender equality. One explanation for this phenomenon is that liberal mores and greater social and occupational opportunities enable a more fulsome expression of individual and sex differences in personality and life choices. Along with the magnitude of psychological and behavioral sex differences increasing as societies develop, so are sex differences in morphological and physiological characteristics. For example, we show that the more countries have developed over the last century or so, the more people's adult heights have increased, but that men's heights have increased about twice as quickly as women's. The result is greater sexual height dimorphism as the living conditions of nations' citizens improve. Our cognition appears to be diverging between the sexes as well. Spatial ability has also been increasing more quickly in men than women in nations with improving living conditions, while both episodic and verbal memory have been increasing more quickly in women. Are the divergences between the sexes in psychological and behavioral traits linked to the divergences in morphology? That is there a universal explanation for these changes in mind and body? Disease, famine, and intense social conflict are stressors that affect our growth and development, compromising the full expression of some of our bodily traits such as height and cognitive ability. If one sex presents a particular trait in an exaggerated fashion, such as height in men, under stressful conditions that trait in that sex is probably more vulnerable to not fully developing. In turn, only in low-stress environments, such as provided by highly developed nations today, would we expect to see the full expression of human traits, and the full genotypic difference in those traits between the sexes where substantial genetic differences exist. We propose then that over the recent history of our species, two mechanisms have been at play driving the greater distinction between the sexes in many morphological, physiological, cognitive, behavioral, and psychological characteristics. The central column of this image represents the evolution of sex differences in many traits, driven primarily by sexual selection. One mechanism affecting the magnitude of sex differences in traits is ecological stressors, represented by the horsemen of the apocalypse. Sex differences in morphological, physiological, and cognitive traits are most clear in environments with low ecological stressors. The other mechanism is social stressors. Sex differences in preferences and personality are more clear in societies that do not require rigid adherence to social norms. Critically, cross-cultural analyses suggest that these two mechanisms, environments becoming less stressful and societies becoming less restrictive, are connected through risk of disease, famine, and invasion by an external group. Increases in these risks are associated with increases in informal and formal social controls on the expression of individual preferences. In other words, the same factors that keep the horsemen of the apocalypse at bay, such as improved nutrition and reduced between-group conflict, contribute to a reduced need for large-scale ideological in-group cooperation and conformity. To summarize, when the human species is freed from stressors, both ecological and social, the sexes diverge in a variety of characteristics. This is one, because individuals exhibit their full genotypic potential for physical and cognitive traits, which increases sex differences in those characteristics, and two, because individuals experience reduced social pressures to conform, which enables the expression of sex differences in behaviors reflected in various aspects of personality and occupation choices. Further details about our thesis can be found in our paper published at Biology Letters. You can download the paper at the journal's website or ask for a copy by contacting the corresponding author, Dave Geary.